All right. Well, thanks again for coming. We're going to go over how to 1031 exchange into other rentals, like Carlos alluded to. So just a little bit about ourselves. We got to, get on the stand and tap our back, give ourselves a pat on the back. We've done really well the past 10 years. I've been with the team for 5. And absolutely loving it. Real estate really has provided a lifestyle that I want to live in, and definitely want to share that with others in terms of lifestyle, building wealth, but also, having time for family and things that matter. So I got into real estate because it's a family business. My grandfather was in real estate in terms of like owning a multi-unit and, collecting cash in Astoria, Queens, and being able to live the life that he wanted to, which is a hobby shop. It probably makes like, I think he makes $500 a day, and market rent for something like that's 10,000. But he just enjoys the lifestyle of going to work. God bless him, he's 85, and ever since that kid, I was like, man, that's the life, like doing what you love and being able to do it. I think he's open like whenever he wants. He's got 11 to 3 hours, 11 to 3, Wednesday through Saturday. So anyway. Real estate really has impacted me, and I decided to get into it from banking. So doing a little bit of that, hit some roadblocks, obviously, with this higher priced market and just environment. So just on here also to kind of say that I'm in the market as well to find deals, and hopefully we'll be able to network to make my goals happen and your goals. And then I guess I'll pass it to Carlos and do a little intro.
Yeah, no, just that we're here to facilitate conversations, Nick and I, in this club, in this meetup group, around real estate investing related topics. Full disclosure, you might have any sort of hosts who are investors. Well, the hosts you've got, me and Nick, we happen to be a particular kind of investor. We're a buy and hold investor. We don't do much flipping. We've done some, and actually we're probably going to do more than we've done. But heretofore, it's mostly been buying and holding. Like Jad, like Brian, like Scott. There may be others of you who do that sort of stuff, and I haven't learned that yet. So I want to know more about you. We're supposed to share here. So be happy to be quiet and listen and hear you guys share your questions or your stories. If we were meeting in person, which we hope to do before the year is over, it might be a little easier to raise your hand and, elbow your way into the conversation. So you can raise your hand physically or electronically or put something in the chat if we're overlooking the fact that you're trying to get into the conversation with a question or a comment. Let's keep rolling. There's a page coming up that's a disclaimer at some point where we're supposed to let you know that we are not providing professional advice. So as part of the Grid Network, it's our responsibility to let you know this is an informal meetup group. That's what the fine print will be in a few slides. Try to get that out of the way. But what we want to help you do is the letters in our acronym. Grow, return, invest, and develop. And develop is really important, meaning that the learning and the sharing is a big part of the ethos of this group. You're going to have people here who are, really, really, really experienced investors. And then you're going to have other people just sort of looking from the outside, wanting to get into real estate investing. So it's for all types. And one of the things in terms of developing leadership and expertise is that it's a platform for people, if you'd like, to tell your story. Also to develop your contacts who can help you develop your expertise. So hopefully things are cross-germinating in all sorts of neat ways. Hey, Casey. We have another investor I know. So again, if there's anyone here who's an investor and we haven't acknowledged it, it's just because we don't know that yet. So tell us who you are and what you're up to, if you'd like. Yeah, basically, It's a networking thing. Is there anybody who would like to, some of you we know and some of you that we don't, is there anyone who wants to reiterate who they are or introduce yourself? Maybe in particular.
I'll kick it off just to loosen the gears of everyone, right? I'm John Moore. I've been on a couple of these before, but it's been a long time because I got some newborn twins in the mix. I've talked with Nick a bunch of times. I met him through Dr. Joe's program and got some good info from him throughout the years. Hopefully looking to do some business with him at some point. But right now I'm kind of in a hold and rebuild phase because these kids are taking all my money. But so I got into buying at the end of the crisis in 2008. Bought my first place out of school. I bought a foreclosure that needed some work and put that work into it, sweat equity, and definitely made some money off of that. Stayed there for a few years and realized my place could rent for more than what I was paying in a mortgage. So I had some cash saved up, so decided to move, and that just kind of sparked this thing for me where I was moving every year, buying a place, turning it into a rental, and then moving on to the next. Not so much concerned with cash flow at that point, just trying to build properties and build equity, and in it for the long term, right? Like both Nick and Carlos said, buy and hold, the easy hard way, right? Having to move every year, but locking in those low rates and hopefully setting myself up for the long run. In the future, looking to figure out how to go forward with whatever path I'm trying to decide on, which is kind of why I'm sitting on my hands a little bit, trying to stack a little bit of cash and then also figure out which direction I want to go. This area is very expensive. It's hard to personally feel like I can come up with the cash, and at the same time hard for me to get my head wrapped around tying in other capital from other folks when I'm not as experienced in the quick turnaround buy and holds or flips or anything like that. So my mind is a little bit more set on other areas right now, trying to get multi-units in other regions just because the point of entry is a lot lower, right?
John, I would love to speak with you at some point with Nick, because you've said a couple of things that relate to some opinions, some beliefs I have as to why people sometimes don't get rolling as quickly as they'd like, and in particular when they're like, I believe you or me, a person who has a main job and to invest is your side hustle.
At least for now.
Pardon?
At least for now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I inferred that because you said building equity is really what you're after. It's not as much the cash flow. That statement implied what I just deduced.
Yeah.
I'm
not saying I'm not interested in cash flow. I'm always interested in cash flow, of course, right? But that was it was not the first main goal of my previous investments.
But don't get me wrong. You might be surprised why I just mentioned that.
Sure.
I think the fact that you said that is actually potentially brilliant. It's, this is one of the things about people who want to invest but are frustrated they don't get to invest. They often have an unrealistic expectation of cash flow, which it appears you do not, which is great.
Very much so.
Because they want to match the cash flow outcomes of the professional investors.
Yeah.
People who live off of their cash flow, that is their income, that is their vocation, that is where they are sharpening themselves 24/7, as
Sure.
opposed to people like me. And the thing about it is, I have a portfolio that's worth millions and I owe millions of dollars, which is great. I feel that was an achievement. I feel to have the millions of dollars of debt. And even though that's true, and even though I'm a realtor, and even though I love real estate, I am not a professional investor. And so what a lot of my clients I've found get stuck on is that they have a higher expectation of the buy and hold investment property they will acquire in terms of cash flow than even I do. And I'm in real estate. I have a relatively low expectation, and and part of it is like you're competitive, you're smart, and you know it can be done, but there's a person who's doing it. And so you think I should too, but like what you don't give that person credit for is all of the time, energy, and maybe even money that they're expending to unearth those opportunities and analyze them and bring sweat equity to them and maybe some money, so I'm very interested in what you're describing is your journey. And then one question, so that we don't make this whole meeting about this topic, because I could talk about what gets people stuck and what they never get unstuck from all day long, because I think it's so important. Because I think fundamentally it has a lot to do with being unrealistic. Okay, but the question I want to ask you is, and you just said you've got twins and that they're young, so you don't sound like you're able to move particularly quickly, but how many people are in your household?
4 right now.
So
my strategies absolutely has to change, right, from what I've been doing previously.
There any chance before they get too much older and your family roots in too much more deeply that you could go buy another house with
but so I did. That's what I'm saying. I don't feel stuck. I let me just caveat that, right? I just bought a house in August, right? We were living in Arlington, and we found out it was twins, and we were in a 2-bedroom. You can't have twins in a 2-bedroom and expect help to come move in with you. So it was immediately, my mind was like, we left the doctor. I'm like, we have to move. So I went into overdrive looking for a new place. And now we're out in the burbs a little bit, right? We're out in Manassas. But I don't feel stuck. It's just, I don't want to move my family anymore at this point. It's more of a desire that we found a place that we like, and that strategy is no longer in play for me. My wife is not going to allow it. As I'm bored with the process that we've entered in, that as she is, I don't want to do that to us anymore. At least not to turn this place into a rental. Like every house that I've gone into previously has been, my mind was clicked on that this is going to be a rental at some point. The renovations we did were to make it ready for rental, right? I had no anticipation of staying in any of those places, well, except for the last one in Arlington, more than 5 years, right? So this one, we feel longer. So it's now more of a shift to, again, I just bought a house, did some renovations. It's build capital, and then figure out the game plan for a different approach that I can take on, And yeah, like you said, the other aspect of it, like the cash flow piece that you mentioned, I absolutely agree. There's an unrealistic expectation about what is to be considered good cash flow. And people tend to think about the dollar amount above your principal interest expenses and don't consider the pay down of your mortgage, right? It may not be something that's coming into your hands, but that's massive to me. Like the fact that someone else is paying off my mortgage, I consider that part of my cash flow. I may not see it in my pocket every month, but it is absolutely a part of my cash flow.
Yeah, John, man, you're my people. I'm your people. I mean, I get you. I get what you're saying. I like what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
Yeah, I would love conversations with you. I'm all on board for it. And Nick and I have talked a couple of times. I love talking to Nick. So yeah, I'm on board.
Cool. Good story. I'm glad you got the new house in August. That's awesome.
I appreciate it. Yeah, but that's why I'm here. You guys are awesome. I'm down to hear what you guys have to say for sure.
Yeah. So anybody else want to introduce him or herself? Casey?
We got Scott on the line. Scott's a great property manager. So talking about, lifestyle, sacrifices, obviously, moving around and creating different single family, doing the hack where you live in your next rental. You could then offload that work to a property manager, which, this close in doing. I had, plumbing issues and a heater go out on the same day, man. Scott, I don't know how you do it. I really don't. DC water, sewer, man, don't know how you do it. You're
You're on
on
mute,
mute, Scott. Literally, there was poop and coming out of the bathtub in my Airbnb. You know, not the first time.
Well, let's try to unmute. Takes a
Yeah.
lot of patience. Yeah, we just had to deal with that this past weekend. So
People did.
I'm very familiar with that. So yeah, one of the things that really we help a lot of rental owners with is just peace of mind of not having to worry about this stuff. We deal with it all day, every day. And, you know, it's been years. So it's something that seems kind of catastrophic and actually can be for a situation. It just kind of initiates, if you will, a certain process for us. So if you've got a condo unit that leaks water into another condo unit, then we know what to do. We're like, okay, we got to do this, this, this. We got to take care of these things. Got to contact the insurance. You got to, you know, contact the condo, contact the owner above. You know, so we're really familiar with these kinds of things, and it just helps us to be able to be more confident in dealing with the matters. But also, it's just being that objective party. So when you enter into transactions with tenants as a landlord, yourself, I think a lot of times we all just want to be really good landlords, and we end up co-opting some of our own interests because we want to make people happy. And I think that's a human natural trait. Unfortunately, it also means that from a business perspective, sometimes landlords don't make the best decisions they could for themselves. So being yeah.
Tell us just a little quick spiel on your business and
Sure.
And your own rental portfolio.
Right. So I actually started out being a rental investor myself back in the 2000s. I was working in corporate America. And as I started getting a couple of properties, I just really wasn't happy with the responses from property management companies. Opportunity came during the housing crisis to shift gears and change careers. It took me a while to figure it out, but I realized it was real estate that really got me going. And after talking with various people, including Carlos, and learning everything you had to do to be a successful agent, I knew that wasn't my personality. And it was not going to be natural and easy for me. But he said, you know what, you might try property management. And it really does fit well with my personality. And I got to tell you, doing it now for 13, 14 years, I think, I never wake up a day and not want to go to work or, you know, dread doing something. So I think this is a lot. And our company, we focus on mid to upper level rentals in Washington, D.C. We look at other opportunities, but we're a smaller company. We manage about 175 units right now, mostly individual condos, single family homes, or row houses that are split into multiple apartments. We focus on a higher level of attention or attentiveness to the rental, to the property owner, to the tenants. And I really pride ourselves in trying to be responsive, respectful, and you know, caring to people. And I think that's kind of a trademark and hallmark for us. And this month, we're celebrating our 10th year in business.
I just counted in my head because that's where I do my counting. By the way, guys, I used to do it on my fingers. I do it in my head now. So I just counted that I've got 17 individual humans, tenants, not 17 leases, but with you. And when we bring the upper unit at Vermont on, I'll be up to 21. If I can get four people in that young professional group house. And we're about to, by the way, Scott, FYI, start renovations upstairs there next month.
Oh, that's awesome.
So hopefully,
What's the name of your company, Scott?
Columbia Property Management.
Thank you.
I can put the where's the chat function?
yeah, put it in there. Scott's terrific.
Oh, here it is.
You know, I can vouch for him. I've noticed that I don't know that I ever set out to do this, but often when I engage professionals, they are people who also buy what they sell. So this Scott's a property manager who you know manages his own properties, invests in real estate, also knows what it's like to be a landlord. And I like that about him. Also, you know, aren't you the son of a realtor? Wasn't your mom a realtor?
Yeah, she was a real estate agent. She founded the first all-female brokerage in my hometown in the 70s, which was quite a deal.
I didn't
It
know
was
that.
a time when real estate agents were all men.
That's legit.
And it was the boys club, right? So, so she was a real estate investor then, even through the 80s when I was in high school and stuff like that. So I kind of had that bug, and it's definitely kind of in the family for sure. So I was just going to say, well, tag on to Carlos. We also have a specialty. We've kind of developed the specialty over time with Carlos, in fact, of managing group house rentals, or we call them group house rentals, basically large homes that you place young professionals in at rents anywhere from 1,000 to 12 or 1,300 per room, depending on the type of house and whether the bathroom. So it can be a really lucrative business model for a buy and hold rental.
I'm aiming for 1,500 per room at Vermont upstairs, minimum.
Wow.
That's my goal.
Yeah, but those rooms are amazing. So
it makes me feel better because I thought I was being crazy. Like maybe you think there's hope.
no, depends what you're going to be doing. We'll take a look at it.
Anybody else want to say a quick introduction?
I can
Yeah.
go.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name's Danae. A little bit newer to real estate. I actually met Nick when I attended a seminar he held for first-time home buyers. I just closed on my first home in DC a few weeks ago, so very excited to be done with that part. But as I think about my goals for the next few years and then learning from those that have been in the industry a lot longer, I'm excited to use this group and opportunity to learn.
Awesome. Congrats.
Thanks.
Was it Bethel?
Yes. Hi guys. So I came on here, I think a while back. So I'm just getting back into it. I had moved to Atlanta about a year ago. I bought my first property here. It was almost a classic Burr strategy, except I didn't refinance because my rate was so good. But I just put that place up for rent, and I'm planning to move back to DC because my office is finally open, and so I'm actively looking for property that I can house hack. And then I also just recently closed on a first syndication that I invested in. It was a 110 unit apartment complex in Austin, Texas. So also hoping to learn through that process, but so haven't been doing this too long, but certainly trying to buy in the area pretty soon.
Are you going to try
Awesome.
Bethel? That will
Who
sorry.
was
Just a quick follow-up question to Bethel. Are you going to try to buy something that will like when you buy it, you're going to think, will this be a good rental? Or are you just going to try to buy something that'll make you happy?
No. I want it to be an asset, but I also need to live in it. So it will be a primary residence that I could also, rent out either part of it if it's a multi-level place, or have roommates because I'm doing this by myself now. So certainly looking to rent part of it out and then move and buy another one at some point.
I like the way you think. She says, I need to live in it, but it's going to be an asset. All right.
And Carlos, my name is, obviously you know my name, and I just want to thank you and Nick for hosting this. I've been joining you guys now for over a year, every month. I think you guys have the best meetup on the grid system. So thank you for that. I do a lot of buy and holds too. I do on the 1% rule. I pay for them all cash and I refinance within 30 days out of them. I strongly recommend not buying single family homes. It's a cash drain. There's always something wrong. I try to buy houses with lots of bedrooms because I usually do voucher tenants. Although now there's a lot of qualified market people, so you can make more money off of it. So, and I mostly focus like on Woodbridge, Stafford, anything that's a 1%. If the house is 300,000, I can rent it for 3,000, I buy it. 400,000, 4,000, I buy it. I think Airbnb is awesome. I'm jealous of all the people. I know a guy in Fredericksburg, young guy, he's renting a thing next to the train station and he's making like 5,000 a month off of a crappy condo. And I'm just like, how is this even possible? He's just like, well, I'm like, why do they just get a hotel room? He's like, they just don't want to. I'm like, yeah. So Airbnb is amazing, but I'm just lazy and I just like to have my Section 8 and just get my money ACH'd every month.
Oh yeah, Chad, you're so lazy. You don't do well.
So there's
No, like once you put them in, like I don't want to, but Airbnb is the future. I'd love to meet with Scott and start buying those properties. I'm buying 2 flips on the 21st and on the 25th. One is in Gaithersburg and one is in Ellicott City. I'm buying one for $355. The ARV is $525. I'm buying another one for $389. The ARV is $560. I had a chance to buy one in Northeast DC, but there wasn't really any parking and you had to add 2 bathrooms. I think they wanted $375. The ARV is maybe $625. But I just don't know how I can sell a row house in Northeast without parking. I just don't think anyone's giving me $625 for it.
You might. We can talk to you about that. But Jad,
not if it's not detached.
Yeah, these houses. Well, first of all, you guys, Jad is a person. There's so many things. You said so many things. That's one of the things about you. Every time you talk, you say so many things. I don't know which part to focus on, and each one of them could be like a whole meeting. So, okay. First of all, thank you. I can't believe that you are saying that we are a very good webinar because you go to a lot of these and you know what's up. So, wow.
The reason why you guys, I think, are the best webinar is because you guys are in the trenches every day. Also, you guys spend a lot of time prepping for the thing. And then also, like, you're very up to date on the market research. A lot of people just like put up slides from like 10 years ago and just want to get through the meeting, but you like actually bring like real facts. Like you want to talk about the war and how it impacts the economy. Most people that host these things wouldn't even bring that up because they're too scared to say something stupid. But you're like, let's see how it affects it. So that's why you guys are different. And Nicholas is very organized with the meeting and you guys are hustling.
Thank you, Jad. I mean, coming from you, that means a ton.
Appreciate it.
Geez, thank you. Honestly, humbled by that. But so let me just isolate one thing that you talked about because you threw some numbers out there and people like numbers. I know I do. You basically described 3 houses, the one in Northeast and the other 2. That where like you buy them in the high 3s and you're looking in what is it, the low 6s. So what is that? That's a 250 spread between what you buy them for and the ARV. And then what are you thinking is the amount of money you'll put in and the amount of time it'll take to get in and out?
So that's an excellent question. At this stage, how hot the market is, I really just want to put new appliances. I want to do paint, carpet, remodel the bathrooms. The key to this is your contractor. People say duh, but not really. Like I just got my GC license, everyone on this call, because you have to be super competitive, so I've tried, it took me 4 tries, but I finally passed. But now that I have my GC license, to answer your question, Carlos, I can be the GC on my own project and do that. So I save about 20% on my costs. So now like the house in Gaithersburg, that's $355. I'm hoping that paint, carpet, bathroom remodeling, hopefully kitchen, just replace the cabinetry. I think we're going to keep the cabinetry, just paint it and do all new handles. And I'm hoping that'll cost me $60,000 or less. But if you use a GC will come in at 80, right? Because the GC has to manage and hire the people, and then he puts his percentage on top. The worst part about the GC is that if he doesn't have good subs, or if his subs are busy on another job, then he doesn't want to lose out on the work, so he'll bring subs that he's never used before. And then once that happens, Carlos, good luck.
So it looks like between your cost of acquisition, carrying costs, and work, you're probably in for about 5, and you're probably going to clear $150 on these types of.
So if I'm buying it at $355, let's say the work costs $60,000. So $355 plus $60,000, you're looking at about $405. The buyer, and this is brought to me by a wholesaler. So, but luckily each side is responsible for their own transfer taxes, which is very important. Everyone on this call, if a wholesaler brings you a deal, try to split the transfer fees, because Maryland transfers are crazy. All right, so once that's split, the work should be done in less than a month. So we're at, let's say 420. And then at 420, you list it, put coming soon within 10 days. You put the price at like 565. If no one calls you, then you've priced it too high. And you just maybe bring it down to 549 and hope that people get excited about it.
Ooh, I like that.
So
Little
what
nugget.
are we talking about? In and out in 90 days and clear 100? I'm just trying to get those two boxes.
Yeah, of course. That's the thing. But yes. I had a house for everyone on this call that was gonna buy. I'm not gonna say the location because it's brought to me by someone that is like a member of this group. But it was a good price. I would have cleared 80,000. There was only one problem. It has a septic issue. And the septic issue, it's on a small lot, right? And the septic is not draining. How much do you guys think it costs to replace a septic system that's not draining and that the backyard is saturated? And it's only on a half-acre lot. What do you guys think that costs?
Well, I don't even understand what the solution is, because if the lot is saturated, what do you do?
Well, there's two different ones, right? So John Moore says 50K and Casey Clare says 5K. So Casey, I replaced an entire septic system in Nokesville, and I just sold that house last month. I made about 90,000 on that house. It cost only 16,000 to replace an entire septic system. However, if the septic is not draining, which means that even if you replace the septic and it's just standing there because of whatever the flow issues are, the soil, etc., then it costs close to between 50 to 60,000 because you have to put an alternative system in. And then, but that's not even the worst part. The worst part is you have to get permits. You have to go through the health department. You have to see if they'll even allow you to put it there. So that's going to be about a 6-month process. And good luck. And if you can't, then what are you going to do with the house? You might as well just have to keep it as a rental.
Sounds like a really crappy problem.
Anyways,
Yeah.
I was supposed to close on it 2 days ago, and I ended up losing half of my EMD. But I should have known. What they had indicated was that the septic needs to be replaced. They didn't say that which is fine because I just replaced the other one in Nokesville for 16,000. They didn't tell me that septic is not draining and you may need an alternative system that's going to cost you 60 grand.
Yeah,
And I should have.
there's a
and I
plot of
should have-
land in Lorton that is on sale for like under 200 grand, right? Like, in how are you going to get a quarter acre in Lorton for under 200 grand? The reason why is because the land isn't perk, right? The septic tank, it won't dissipate the water that's coming into the septic tank. So yeah, whole different type of system. You're talking about 50, 60 grand, and that's if the county will allow it, right? Like the permits part that he was talking about. It's a mess if there's a drainage issue, or it won't evaporate the water, right?
Yeah, so like anyone that's on here, if you guys get someone who's selling you a house that's on septic and well from a wholesaler, just be like very, very careful. I bought another house from a wholesaler 3 months ago, and they said they had a tenant living in there for 3 years. I bought it, put a voucher tenant in there, and guess what? It didn't pass the voucher inspection. You guys want to know why?
Yeah.
Because the well is dry. There is no water. How the F have people been living in this house for 3 years without water? Tell me, Carlos. I'm just trying to understand this. I'm just trying to understand. I spent $210,000.
It's called the Poland Spring shower.
I'm just trying to ask you, like, the lady was like, people are paying you $1,600 a month. Would you like for them to stay there? I'm like, absolutely not. Vouchers will pay me $2,800, right? So I went and I told them, so I go to Victim, paint carpet so I can refinance out of it because I bought it for $210. The comps are like, $320, $325. So Section 8, they go do the inspection, they go through everything. Okay, everything looks good. However, when we go to turn on the water, nothing comes out. I'm like, this must be it. This must be a mistake, right, Carlos? People have been living here for the past 4 years. How is it possible? Guess what the tenants were doing, Carlos?
Transported.
They were going across the street to the neighbor's house and getting water from their well and dumping it in there, I guess.
Man.
You guys want to hear the rest of the story? You guys want to see how it plays out?
All right, go for it.
Okay, so 210, so I buy it, and so now I had a renter who's gonna pay me 2,800. I'm stuck now with no water, so I'm like, fuck this, man. You know what I mean? So I was like, so it's on 5 acres, right, Carlos? So I go to find, like, I have to dig another well because this well is completely dry. Not only that, the seller knew that the well was completely dry because the well company that I called said that the previous owner had called them and they told him that it was dry since 2018. So do you guys know what the wait list is to dig a new well in Virginia?
6
How long
months.
do you guys think? What do you guys think the backup is to get someone to come drill you a well?
6
8
months.
months.
6 months. That's they're on the wait list. 6 months. And so this guy charges 8. He was going to charge me 13 to come because I told him that me and my kids are living in there and that we're currently, taking buckets of water and they can't. They're stinking up the school and the teachers are calling. Anyways, the guy feels bad. Okay. So it takes him, and then he lies. He says he's going to come out in 2 weeks. Of course, he doesn't come out till like 3 months later. But I get lucky on this house. I bought it for 210. I bought it for 210. Well was 13,000. New roof, blah blah blah. Put another 20,000. So 210 plus 230 plus the 13, 233. I listed it for 300, right? With an agent out there in Fredericksburg. Someone came. And luckily we got 2 offers, and this guy wanted to really buy it because his hunt club backs up to the house or something. So he was willing to give me $320,000. So I ended up making like 70 grand on this house that I thought was a complete disaster. So God really loved me, and I got really lucky with it. But the point is, for the buy and hold investors, if someone's selling you a house with septic and well, and it's way below market, just be very careful.
I mean, Carlos is airing it out. It smells. It smells like a bad deal. I was smelling that all day Sunday. So maybe you could fix my septic.
Chad is always good for an adventure too, because he has mostly wins, but in order to put yourself out there.
Yeah, I mean, you just made the assumption. And the last thing is, like, if you guys deal with older, like, realtors, like, which I do, because I grew up in Fauquier County and, like, Warrenton, that area. So they're like, don't do well inspections. It's all bullshit. All they do is just walk over the well and tell you it's fine. Save your money. Just do the septic. You know what I mean? So I was like, yeah, you're right. Why am I having someone just come walk over? They have people living in it. It's on 5 acres. How bad can it be? But I've never had that happen to me, Carlos, where people are living in there and have no water. Why would you even pay $1,600 a month for a house with no water?
That's a new one. Thank you for that story, Chad. We've been going for I don't know how many minutes. I'm looking for the clock on my screen, and we haven't even introduced Bill Horan, who's been patiently waiting for his moment to tell us some very interesting stuff about how we can save money. And be very, very efficient in rolling our equity forward. So, Chad, we're going to transition to that. You've done some 1031s, Chad, I imagine. And if you haven't,
no, sure. I keep everything. I told you we're over 100 units. I'm too greedy. It takes me too hard to find these deals. I'm not going to just 1031. What's the rush?
Well, I'm young. There is an old adage, some people say they regret everything they've ever sold. But sometimes you can get rid of something to get into something better.
No, absolutely.
And I have personally done 1031s 3 times as a client, as the principal. And then, of course, a number of times I've facilitated or helped as a realtor. So Bill, I'm sure if I keep talking, I'll start messing up what a 1031 is. But rather than do that, I'll read the script because I think I can handle that. Bill has been 19 years plus in this business. He has a staff, so it's a proper operation, a staff of 15 people. He is, what you need to be, a CES, a certified exchange specialist. Not just anyone is allowed to, generate all the paperwork, do all the legal stuff, and hold the money. Rather, you need to be a 1031 exchange agent.
So when do you want me to stop you and say that's not right?
Is that not right?
No, anybody can be a QI.
Is that right?
Yeah, man. Hang your shingle tomorrow. Come on.
Well, I wouldn't trust just anybody. And
Carlos, there was an episode on American Greed about a guy that did turn 31. Did you see that episode?
A guy named Ed Oken. I know him.
Yeah, basically he said a 1030, and he was a genius. He was like, yeah, just leave your 1031 money with me, and then he just took it.
Right. He died in jail in Texas. He's done.
Well, so before I make another mistake, Bill, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the 1031?
Well, you got it right there. That's just what we do. My dad started the company in 1990, and I'm second generation. I've been at it. I'm at 20 years now, and
Cool.
yep, we got plenty of staff. This is all we do is help people with 1031 exchanges all over the country, mostly Mid-Atlantic. That's my backyard. That's where I market. So this is my space, if that's the right word to use. You know, I got clients that do big stuff and little stuff. The bulk of what we do is small investors trading their rental properties. I do a decent amount at the beaches, right? There's a lot of rentals at the beach, you know, trading, moving closer to the ocean, all that kind of stuff. But this is what we do, help people with exchanges, soup to nuts. We're just the middleman. That's our role.
But like, tell us what the heck exactly is a 1031 exchange?
Yeah. So just by definition, you're trading your real property, any kind of real estate that's held as a business investment. So that I'm going to come at it from a different direction. It really means anything other than a primary, because that's your home, or a second home, because that's all personal use, or a flip property or dealer property, because that's held for resale. That's not really held for investment. But anything else can be traded. And that's typically the buy and hold. You're in the rental market, right? You're just moving your rental business somewhere else, or land, you know, because farmers trade land all the time, or forestry or whatever, or any of the bundle of rights. You know, I've done plenty of exchanges on mineral rights or density rights or all those sorts of things. Any of the bundle of rights can be traded for something else. The bulk of what we do is people moving their rental property. I'm tired of this one. This one's a pain in the rear end. I'm going to trade it for something else. Or I'm sitting on dirt. I'm not making any cash flow. I'm going to sell the dirt and go buy some rental property and generate cash flow. So motivation is all over the map as to what it is. But the fundamental premise is you're just giving up real estate and replacing that investment real estate. And you keep going. Change the location, change the type, whatever you want it to be. Change the color, whatever. Okay. And you don't have to pay taxes to do that, right? The government just says, hey, you're trading this. You're going to continue to own real estate in a different location. So you just keep moving. You're just moving your rental business. That's just a simplistic way to describe it. You have a slide on there, 1-for-1 exchange. It's real estate money for real estate money. I could sell 2 or 3 rentals and buy 2 or 3 rentals. It's just how much real estate did you give up and how much did you replace? It's a value thing. Okay. So for example, if I give up, you know, a $500,000 rental townhouse, I got some selling costs in there. Maybe it's 40 grand to get out, and that gets me down to like 460 that's left. I got to go buy another 460 worth of real estate to replace my investment. Just as a simplistic logic, if it was an all cash deal and the buyer showed up and gave you $500,000, you paid your 40 grand to get out, you're left with 460 of money. You got to go buy another 460 worth of real estate to replace what you had. You just put all the money back in. That could be 2 properties, could be 3, whatever you want it to be, to replace that 460. And if you don't, let's say you go from 460 and you find a wonderful investment at 400. That's the deal of the century. I'm not putting all the money back in. You're going to pay tax on that 60. That's what we call boot. You're getting something to boot out of the deal. So money's not going all the way back into the real estate. So you're cashing out. You pay your taxes on the 60. And so it doesn't break the whole transaction. You just start exposing yourself to taxes.
Bill, if I could cut in there, John Moore has a question.
Hey, hi, John.
Hey, thanks. Awesome. Question is, you said $500,000 down to 460. The next purchase has to be at least 460. We're talking purchase price, right? Not
That's
equity
right.
in the deal.
Spend the money. Yeah, and so that is a good thing. That's a good point, because I hear that all the time when I talk to clients. They just want to spend the cash that comes out of the deal, and most clients have debt on it. Well, the debt has nothing to do with the value of the real estate. That's just what you owe. So to not pay tax, you got to replace the full value and put all the money back in. So if I use my example, I sell out at 460, you know, I'm adjusting for my selling costs because I got money to get out, and I have a $90,000 mortgage on it. That's going to get paid off when I close, and I'm left with another, what, 370 of cash. I go buy again at 460, same value. I put all 370 back in. I got to come up with the rest of the money to buy again at 460. So most people just go get another mortgage. So, but in the end, the concept is I had something at 460, I still own 460 worth of real estate. It's just a different address. And I put all the money back in. I just moved it. Could be 2, could be 3, but financially, I'm still in the same boat. I still own that much real estate. So it's not just the proceeds. That I fight with that with clients all day long, because you see that on the web. To defer the gain, you got to replace, spend the money. Well, you don't. It's if it was a cash deal, you got to spend all the money, basically, right? But most people have debt, and that's money, right? You got to put all the money back in to replace.
Bill, I think you're going to get to the timetables. Casey certainly has a question about the
Sure.
time horizons around 1031 exchanges.
Sure. Let's go on to the next slide, because I think you have a slide that sort of brings that question up. You got motivation there. Yep, we talked about that. All right, let's talk about the timing for a minute. So the exchange window is 180 days. So from when you give up the ownership, you close on the relinquished, the one you're giving up, you have to replace that investment in 180 days. Originally, there was a court case, guy named Starker. He owned timberland, and he structured some exchanges where there was this big gap in time between him owning his timberland. Well, the government didn't like multiple years in between transactions, so they locked us into 180 days. And so when the reason is that the government wants the entire transaction on a single tax return. So if you sold in December, what the law actually says is you get 180 days to replace this, even though you may be buying in the next year or the due date of your tax return. They want the whole transaction when you sold and what you end up buying on one tax return. You report it on the year that you sell. So that's the reason we got 180 days, because they wanted everything on the same tax return. If they start bridging longer than that, they're into multiple tax returns and they'll lose track of the transaction. They didn't want to do that. So 180 days is the window to replace. You have to identify property in the first 45 days. This is the pain in the ass part of an exchange. Let me just paint the picture. You close, the clock starts ticking. The money comes to me in escrow. So the premise behind an exchange is you're not gaining anything in between owning real estate. You give up some real estate, you don't get anything. And then you end up owning real estate when it's all said and done. That was the trade. You traded old for new, and there's a gap in time between the ownership. So the money comes to me being held away from me. You're not getting anything, right? If you don't give me a list by the 45th day, I don't know what to buy. I'm stopping. I'm returning your cash. Then the exchange is over. When we get to that 45th day, you've got to give me a list of properties you're thinking about buying. There are 3 rules. One is called the 3 property rule. I have a form you fill out. You give me 3 addresses of any value. You can put skyscrapers on there. I don't care. I just need addresses, right? What are we buying? Those are your choices. The second rule is called the 200% rule, meaning that if the list has 4 or more, the list value is limited to 2 times what was sold. I used the example earlier that we sold at $500,000. That means $1 million could be on the list if it's 4 or more. I'll have somebody sell a $2 million warehouse, and their plan is to buy dumpy little properties in Baltimore. Well, $2 million sale means $4 million can be on their list. I mean, they can buy half of Baltimore for $4 million. They can put it all on the list, right? And then the third rule is called the 95% rule, which I rarely see. If the list is more than 3 and the value of the list exceeds 2 times what was sold, you got to buy 95% of what's on the list. I had a client sell a pretty large residential in Northern Virginia, and he bought 15 rentals from a little old lady's estate in Richmond. Well, it was definitely more than 3, and that 15 definitely exceeded 2 times what he sold, but he bought it as a package. He bought them all. So he used that 95% rule. Normally, I see the 3 property rule. Clients target what they want, and then they give me a couple of backups on the list just in case something happens.
Wait, I'm so sorry. I don't think I was listening carefully enough. Are you saying you can exceed 3 properties if you do the other?
You have the 200% rule. So if you give me a list of 5 properties, all 5 added up cannot exceed 2 times what you sold. So what was your sale price? Whatever that is 2 times, you can't exceed that number. Okay. Most people are targeting a similar value property, just someplace else, right? And so they use the 3 property rule. That's typically what we see.
If you do 3 properties, can you exceed 200%?
Yes, it doesn't matter the value. You can put a skyscraper on there. Trump Towers are for sale. You can go buy one, right? They're all for sale, right? So that's what I mean. Most people are already targeting something of similar value, or they're climbing in value. They want to use the cash that's coming out of their sale and leverage up to buy more expensive real estate, right? So that's very common. So this is the hard part of an exchange. And because the market is going nuts, what we typically see is clients are putting contracts to buy new property even before they've closed on their relinquished. And I realize that's cheap and easy for me to say, but the clients that are succeeding already have contracts to buy even before they close on the one they're selling. They're doing whatever they got to do to go to the seller, you know, bribe them, take them to dinner, whatever, so that they'll take that contract. You know, I want to buy your house as soon as I get my money from my sale. We used to run 60 to 90 days. This is pre-COVID. We're running about 3 weeks now. So if somebody closes on the relinquished, 3 weeks later, they're closing on their replacement property. That tells me they already have contracts to buy ahead of time.
Mr. William, can I ask you a quick question? Every time
Sure.
someone has said, okay, they have a 1031 exchange, and then I was like, okay, I'll give you, let's say 500,000 down. Can you owner finance 300,000 or whatever? And they're saying that you can't do owner financing on 1031 exchange. Is that true?
Why not? I mean, if you sold at 800, you know, and you had some debt on it, 300 paid off, and you buy a new property for 800 and you put all your cash down, the seller can loan you the money. You just got to come up with the money to buy that new $800,000 property.
But okay, so like when a realtor says client is doing a 1031 exchange,
right,
and it's for sale for X amount, and we offer him owner financing amount.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, you're on the sale side. I thought you were on the buy side.
Correct.
So on the sale side, you know, the client is the lender. So just like any lender, they're going to end up needing to come up with the cash on the buy side. So we'll use the example, the seller's selling for 500 and you come in and say, hey, I want to put 10% down. I want you to loan me the rest of the money. Well, he sold for 500. And let's say it was all cash. He had no debt on this $500,000 sale and he's loaning you the bunch of the money. He's got to come up with 500 grand on the buy side to replace his investment.
Yeah, it's not advantageous.
But not a lot of clients have that much cash floating around to bury into their new property. I have some that do that. Absolutely. So it'll work if they come up with the money. Just like if you went to Wells Fargo and borrowed the cash, he's loaning you money. He's got to come up with the cash at some point to put it into the transaction. Does that make sense? So yes, you can have an exchange, a note in there, an installment note, but they got to come up with the cash, which is the hard part. So if they're rich, they can come up with the cash. You know, I've seen it where the client is selling, you know, when you come in and say, I'm going to put a first in here, but I want you to hold a second. And so maybe the second number isn't quite as big and they can come up with that cash. Did I answer your question, Chad?
Yes, you did. Thank you. That's very helpful because a lot of times I come in with like creative financing and then like the listing agent's like, well, their 1031 person says they can't owner finance. So you can just take your deal and shove it up, you know.
Shoot me an email and I have it all written up on how it works.
That's really, for all the people on this call, that's really important because any listing agent that tells you that, you can say, nope, that's not accurate.
The seller just has to come up with the money, right? And they can't borrow it. They got to come up with their own cash to do it. Right? So that's the hard part.
Should say that again, Will? You have a whole write-up to help us realtors?
How an installment sale works with 1031. If you're selling and you want to offer owner financing to the buyer, and I've had those, plenty of them, how do you handle that installment note? How do we treat that in the middle of an exchange? Done many of them.
I'm assuming that the return has to be lucrative enough that they would do that because they would have to borrow, or they have more money on their hand. It's just like another opportunity of a small little rental on the side.
They're loaning Chad money. He's going to pay him 20% on it. So of course I'm going to loan him that money. I'm going to go down to Wells Fargo and yank my cash out and buy the new one, and he'll pay me 12% or 20% on it. So that works. No problem. All right, let's go. Right. Doesn't matter. Whatever you guys negotiate.
Well, are you finding that, or have you found that 1031 exchanges happen with greater or lesser frequency depending on, you know, market conditions?
So I've doubled since COVID. So, values are climbing, everybody's making money, and nobody wants to pay taxes for some reason. I don't understand it. So we get the phone call. I'm in the profit shelter business. So my goal is, hey, I want to move my property somewhere else. I don't want to pay taxes to get from A to B. Help me get there. So I do the technical part, the trade between old and new. The hard part is selling, which is easy. And then the buy part, that's the hard part.
Is it still true that you can buy a home with a 1031 exchange having sold property?
I always use buy a rental or investment. Home means I move in there. So that don't work.
So you sell a rental and you buy a rental in accordance with the exchange rules, and you rent it out, and then later you move into it.
Sure.
And then you sell it after living in it for 2 years,
right,
and shelter the 500 for a couple filing jointly from capital gain. Is that still
not that easy?
An open loophole?
No, they went after that back in 2009. So that's a common strategy. I want to convert my investment property to my primary, right? Yeah. Common strategy.
Yeah.
So the law 1031 says you can exchange property that's been held. So that means it's on your books. You're filing a tax return to show this property. You got proof on your books that you're holding an investment property, not a home, not a second home, all that kind of stuff. And then the new property's also got to be held as business investment, because the Starker case is he held timberland and then he continued to hold timberland. So you're continuing your investment into a new property. The government gave us a safe harbor of when can you move in, and it's 2 years. Okay. What the safe harbor actually says is you only have to rent for 2 weeks each of the 2 years after you buy. So it doesn't have to be a full-time rental, but you got to keep personal use down to 2 weeks per year, or 10% of the days rented. So like you rent it 300 days, you can use it 30 days and you're okay. So it doesn't have to be a full-time rental. And the other kicker in there is you don't count maintenance days. So that's part of the game everybody plays, is they do maintenance on their investment property.
But I just want to be clear that if you rent it for 2 years, 100% rented.
Yep.
And then you move into it.
Okay.
And then you live for 2 years, and then you sell it.
So there's a quirk in the law that they changed a bunch of years ago, that when the property comes from an exchange, and that's what you did, you exchanged into it, you physically have to own it 5 years, use it 2, because normally on a home sale it's every 2 years.
Okay.
But because of the exchange, you physically got to own it 5, use it 2. So let's paint the picture. You rent for 2, live there for 3. You've hit the 5-year threshold. Now you go to sell it. So back in 2009, they changed the homeownership rules that when you sell a property that started as something else, so like this started as a rental and now you sell it, you have to apply a ratio to the gain. And the ratio is 2 years of rental divided by 5 years of ownership times the gain number. You got to remember, you exchanged in, you brought gain, and you're 5 years later, you got more gain. 2 divided by 5 times the gain number is a taxable number. So they went after the strategy of jump into a property that you've already owned, sell it, and walk away with $250,000 bucks.
So 40% of the gain will be taxed?
If that's the 2 out of 5 ratio, that's correct. Right? So the longer you live there, let's say you live there 10 years, then it's 2 divided by 12. That's a better ratio. They wanted to reward you for living there, not just for jumping into your house and then bailing out.
Good to know.
Used to do that. Man, that was the biggest loophole under the sun.
Yeah, for the local realtors, this is a thing. Like literally, if you've got an older couple and they have an investment property and they also live in a nice house, and they're worried that Miami or Fort Lauderdale is going to be too expensive by the time they get down there, tell them, well, let's sell your local rental property. Let's roll it into a rental down there. You rent it for 10 years, whatever, rent it for 2 years. Later, you're going to make it your primary, and it's a way to grab a little turf, in a appreciating market, and capture that upside.
Well, and the important part is the investment property paid for the retirement place. You went and bought where you want to retire. You sell your home here, you put $500,000 in your pocket tax free, and you get all your principal back. You don't have to use that money to buy something. You already own it. You're just converting it to a primary, right? And you keep all that money in your pocket. That's the key. You don't have to go buy another place to live. You already own it. You're just changing its use.
Yep, that's great stuff. And I'm sure that is literally a maneuver that you see, selling something in Fairfax and trading it in for Charleston.
They're planning it out. Absolutely. I had a client sell. He lives out here in Piedmont. I'm out here in Gainesville, so it's one of the neighborhoods out here. He's a handyman guy. He went and bought a bunch of little rentals, plus the one he wanted to eventually live into. He moved his investments up here from up here in Northern Virginia, expensive stuff. Bought a whole bunch of little rentals down near Fort Myer. And his plan was get out of Virginia, where he's got an income tax at Virginia, move into Florida, where he's at zero income tax, and his income was dropping in Florida. That's why everybody moves to Florida, so they don't have to pay income taxes. And then trigger sales of some of these little properties so that his gain is on each individual little one when he needed money. Instead of, you sell a big warehouse up here, you got a giant gain number, you're going to get hit. Whereas he spread it out. He diversified what he went into, and he's a handyman, so that was keeping him busy in his retirement days. So he moved, that was all planned out. He mapped that all out. Where can I maximize my money? And when I need money, I'll trigger a small gain on one little sale and take cash.
Your work must be very satisfying, because you're taking just normal folk who, were lucky enough to have a couple nickels to rub together and helping them really strategize.
And keep it. They've worked their asses off, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I use the term that the government is your partner in the deal, whether you want them there or not. They're getting their cut. They're just willing to go with you on to the next deal. Right, and keep going.
So for Carlos' example, where they bought a house in Florida and rented it for however many years, 10 years, and they moved into it. Now the strategy I've always heard of, and I'm sure you're going to get into it, is a step-up clause once you die, right?
Right.
Your kids don't have to pay for it. Does that still apply to that property?
Yes. In our business, you swap till you drop. That's the terminology we use, right? So. So we have lots of clients. That's what they're planning. What do the kids eventually want, or whatever it is? So I'm going to trade in. I go move into my home. I pass away. Today, the estate tax is what, 10.6 million per person. It's a very high hurdle. And so whoever inherits gets a step up in basis. So I use the example of I trade some dumpy townhouses for a beautiful beach house.
Time out. Sorry. Can you just slow that down for us? A step in basis.
I'm going to use my example. I trade a couple of dumpy townhouses for a beautiful beach house, right? I rent it for a couple of years because I meet the exchange requirement. I sell my home. I put my $500,000 in my pocket because I've been in my house 100 years. Move into my beach house. That's where I'm going to pass away. They're going to have to drag me out of there. I pass away, that thing is worth $1 million. My son is going to be my executor. He sets the value at my date of death at $1 million. He sells the beach house at $1 million. He has no taxes. My gain went away when I passed away. He gets a new step up in basis at date of death. And he just walks away and has a party because he's got $1 million.
John and Bill, thanks for teaching me that. I didn't know that. So
part of the strategy, right? What do I want to hand off, right? What can be sold?
I'm panicking because I understood it, but I didn't really understand it, and I want to fully understand it. So wait a minute. So what you're saying is that why does the next generation get to do that?
Because that's the way the law is written. There's a step up in basis at death. And in the 2017 tax reform, it got boosted way up to 10 million, some 10.6 per person. So a husband and wife can hand off 10.6 per person.
Oh, okay. So see, I knew the 10.6 number, but I guess I didn't know that is fundamentally a step up in basis.
Yes, right. So the estate doesn't owe any taxes over 10.6. So I'm handing off stuff to my heirs. As long as I'm below 10.6, they're not going to pay any taxes.
And if it's 20.6, then they'll pay taxes on.
They got plenty of help to help them with that stuff. They can afford all kinds of help to get around that issue.
Okay.
Right.
Wait, so
in the old days, there was like $1 million. And people were going through all kinds of hurdles to put things in trusts and partnerships to try and shelter all that stuff. That was a painful thing. And now it's 10 million. So it's a big number.
So, William, I want to make sure I'm following you. This is all because of the estate tax. It's under the umbrella of the estate tax. And so that's how the step up.
That's right.
is
That's right.
factored in. Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
Right. Because that's the ultimate strategy is keep all your money, take advantage
Mhm.
of the property, and then let the heirs have it.
Mhm.
They don't have to pay taxes. That's the goal.
The ultimate strategy. That's
Ultimate
a
strategy.
long-term thinker. I love
That's
that.
right. Right.
I love
Swap,
that.
Well,
swap
there's
to your
always
drop.
there's always property taxes.
A
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of people, when they ask me questions about real estate investing, they're like, and then what are you going to do with the real estate? And like, literally, I never imagined selling it. It's so good to
Sure.
me. It's going to be so good to others, you know?
Yeah, and that's what I heard. I never planned on selling, right? Never planned on selling. It may be an option, right? But what I understood was if you use the method that we're talking about here, you never have to pay taxes on the depreciation that you're claiming on your rentals over the years because you sell it. Normally that comes due when you sell it, right? But instead of selling it, you 1031 exchange, it just gets passed on to the next property. So that tax bill keeps on adding up. But if you die and pass it on to your kids, it all goes away.
You don't care
So
anyway. You're
it's
dead.
like a strategy for what is your exit strategy? My exit strategy is die. Right. Yeah.
Swap to your drop. Right.
I like it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
the 1031 part is change the investment where you can make more money, right? So I want to go from a rental townhouse into an office condo. That's my opportunity to change the kind of investment. Or this market's too expensive. I want to go into a cash flow market and go buy a house next to an Air Force base where I generate cash flow constantly. I'm not going to get any appreciation, but I'm spitting off cash versus around here. It's all appreciation, right? So it's a mechanism to move the investment and change it somewhere else, split it up, whatever, consolidate it, whatever. I got clients, they'll sell 3-5 properties because they're a pain in the ass, right? Managing all those properties, and they'll go buy one apartment complex to replace that investment. Go to one headache rather than 5 little headaches. It's all strategy, right? It's a mechanism to change the investment.
good
Now,
stuff.
this is to point out that this isn't applicable for primary residence,
No.
and your deferred gains for 250,000 if you're filed single or jointly, you could do 500,000. So this is only for investment opportunities.
That's right. It's really the buy and hold space and the land space because you don't live there. So it's investment property.
What does it, I've always been impressed by how knowledgeable you all are, you 1031 agents. What does it cost to work with you?
Oh,
And
good
how do I
question.
start? Let's say I'm thinking about an exchange. What's my first step?
What gets me going is a copy. First, we have a conversation. What the hell are you selling? Does it work? Right? What are you going to buy? So we sort of map ourselves out. Okay, all that works. And then I get started with a copy of the sale contract on what are you selling. Because if you don't have a contract to sell, you don't need me. So I'm going to get started with the contract. It has what I need in it: address, buyer, price, all that good stuff. I'm going to create an exchange agreement. That's our agreement between us. And I'm sending settlement instructions to the closing company. Hey, this is now an exchange. Send me the money. I'm going to charge you $950 to trade one property for another. So if you're just trading one for one, it's $950. If you start adding more closings to the process, like you sell one and buy two, I'm going to add another $300 because I'm going to go through another closing with you, move money, settlement, all that sort of stuff. Okay, so that's basically the framework of what an exchange is. My part's pretty straightforward. Like I said before, you guys have the hard part, selling and buying. That's hard.
Yeah, but it's one of the best. It's one of the best values out there. You get like to talk to someone like Bill who has so much experience and perspective, and it's not a big fee. So
yeah, no, that part's pretty straightforward. You're going to follow the rules because the government's not going to make it easy. They want your money. They're not going to make it easy to get from A to B. But mostly, once you know what the basic rules are, you can maneuver from there. It's mostly trying to get the basic rules down.
I agree. The value, you just said the price, like absolutely 100%, right? To me, it sounds like and I'm not, this is not an advertisement for Will by any means, right? But like just to have that understanding of the process, having gone through it so many times, it feels like that, like I was nervous about this process. And this was one of the reasons why I got on today. You know, my wife is handling the babies right now just so I can get away to get on this call. I missed the last one because of them. I didn't want to miss this one because this process is frightening to me, just the timeline and everything. But if that's the price right now, and not I don't want you to raise your prices because I'm saying this now, but to have your experience in the whole thing, and you know, basically have your hand held through the process, maybe not the sale process, but at least the exchange process, that's invaluable in my mind.
So there's one line item on this slide. Can we set up a 1031 exchange at closing? Yes, but I'm gonna charge you an extra $200 pain in the ass fee because I'm gonna stop what I'm doing. So if I do it in a rush, I'm gonna hit you with an extra $200, right? If you make up your mind at the last minute. So
fair enough.
Yes, I've had clients sitting at closing when we still did sitting at closing, and I'll do my documents. It takes me about 20 minutes to push them through, right? I'm using DocuSign like everybody else, so my part happens really quickly.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
and you know, I've touched most of the title companies in town, so most of them know what we're doing. This isn't rocket science on their end.
Honestly, Bill, I'd never heard of that. That's good to know that, Nick, we can stick it in at the last second.
Oh my God. Right. That's why I don't have hair.
Yeah, but I mean, it's because I've seen situations where someone's like, oh, I wish I had at least just set up you do it, even if I don't go through with it. I just set one up and didn't go through with it not so long ago. I'll be talking to you next time I need to do one.
Sure, happy to help.
Yeah, managing the clock was one thing you told me. It's 1031 is managing the clock. That's the main thing. I didn't want to. We did have a question about 1031ing and buying a secondary home.
Good question.
I don't. Yeah, that's yeah. I guess would that consider as an investment?
It was a secondary home that was an Airbnb, though. I think that was the point that I had the same question. It's using a 1031 to go into a vacation home, right? But it's being used as an Airbnb most of the time.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine, right? You can do that. I think maybe you got to be careful using that word second home, right? What that usually implies is you're getting a second home loan, which has lower rates. And the intent is to use the property a lot more than 14 days. So the safe space is limit personal use to 14 days, and you don't count maintenance days. But a second home loan, if you're looking at the Freddie Fannie definitions of second home loans, that's predominantly personal use. So they intend you to primarily be in there. And so every lender's got their own definition of what a second home loan is. But you got to be careful with that part, right? Because just by definition, exchanging is business investment for business investment. You should be getting an investor loan on the buy side, right? Because if you go get a second home loan and this thing ever goes under audit, you lied to somebody. You're either lying to government or you lied to the lender, either one. So you got to be careful.
So yes, but no.
And so, you know, I see that question in the chat, visit there during summer days. You can use it 14 days per, where does this come from? This 14 days come from? Section 280 of the tax code determines the amount of loss allowed on a property with personal use. So if you use it more than 14 days, you can't take the losses on that property, right? Because that's a second home. And fundamental to business investment, you should be able to lose money. So now you've tipped your hand to the government. This is a second home because I'm claiming it as on my tax return, and personal use exceeds that 14 days or 10% of the days rented. And then how does the government know? The Schedule E, you guys are probably familiar with Schedule E, right at the top, it says how much personal use, and nobody lies on their tax return. So you put it on there.
I'm sorry, I thought I was on mute when I laughed. So.
I always get that question. How does the government know? Whatever you do, don't tick off the auditor, because all he's got to do is ask your neighbor. Oh yeah, he's over here goofing off all the time. He's having a good time. Throw you right under the bus.
Sorry,
Big brother sees everything.
Follow-up question was, okay, you might, oh no, that's reverse. Okay, different topic. At what point, you said the point at which we should reach out to you is when we're under contract? Is that what you said?
Yes. Okay. So I normally do my paperwork in between contract signing and closing, which is normally 30, 45 days. I usually get myself set up in between that window of time, right? Ideally, give me some time before closing to get set up, and don't make me do it at the last minute. So. You want me to touch on reverses, doing it backwards?
I mean,
Yeah.
I would
You got
like
time?
to. I was doing an open house. You always meet some good characters there. You know, always like to sit back and this lady comes in and I said, "What are you doing here?" She's like, "I'm just shopping." And I said, "What are you shopping for?" She's like, "I'm doing a reverse to 1031." And I said, "What?" You
Right.
know?
What's
And I
that?
was just schooled. Yeah, what's that? So I think it's good to have in your tool belt at least to know.
All right, so let me give you the basics. I teach classes on this stuff, so I teach them out a lot of agents on this stuff, and this takes me about an hour. But so I'm gonna do it in 5 minutes. What the law for 1031 is: sell something, take the money, and buy something new. It's got to be in that sequence. But what if you find something ahead of time and you want to buy the new one? You got competition to buy it. You're going to lose it if you don't close on it. You haven't sold yours yet, but you don't want to lose the new one. And the law says sell and buy. So what do we do? So the government gave us a revenue procedure on how to do this. We create holding companies. I'm going to create an LLC, and it will step in and buy the new property for you. This is the typical scenario. I'll buy the new one for you and hold title to it. It's called an EAT, Exchange Accommodation Title Holder. So it's a straw man, a third party, to grab control of the property and hold it for you until you sell your house and you buy from the holding company. So it's a mechanism to get control of the new property ahead of time before you've sold the old one. I can hold for 180 days. So if you find a new one, I want that one really bad. We got to figure out how to buy and hold it. I'll sell mine and buy from the holding company in 180 days. Most people can sell nowadays. It's the buying and locking in the new one is where the difficulty is. Okay. So where are the issues there? I mean, where's the money coming from, right? So we got to come up with the money for me to step in and buy. I'm using LLCs when I take title to property. So if we're borrowing money, we typically got to go to a bank or the loan shark or somebody that's going to loan to an LLC or grandma or somebody so that we get the cash to step in and buy. I've got clients that got the cash. You know, they raid the piggy bank. They load me that cash. I'll step in and hold the property. When the relinquished sells, right, there's a sale, money flows from that sale, buys from the holding company, we pay the client back because we borrowed the money from them. So money is always an issue. And then what about transfer taxes, right? Because I got 3 settlements in there. The holding company buys the first one, you finally sell yours, and then you got to buy from us, right? What we typically do is we sell the client the LLC that is on title to the property. So if I use the example, I step in and buy a rental townhouse for somebody and I borrow the money from the client. I use an LLC. Client sells, single person sells. And what they buy from us is the LLC that I took title with. They become the sole member of that LLC, and that is the transfer of the real estate. So I don't have to go to the courthouse to record a new deed. I sell them the company that is on title to the property. Depends on what state I'm in, whether I run into obstacles with that, because some states have limits on transferring LLCs that own real estate. But most of the states around here, I'm okay with it. I can handle those things. Right? Pennsylvania is an issue, but I don't do a lot in Pennsylvania. Right? I don't charge $950 to do that, to step in and take title to property. So I start at $5,800. If you need me to step in and you really want that property, it's going to cost you $5,800 for me to step in and temporarily own property. Right.
And it's hard. It's easier in some locations, right? I know DC,
yeah.
It's harder to transfer title, like change the name, ownership of title.
So that's why I transfer LLCs. Right. So I don't have to go to the courthouse. I sell the client the company that's on title, and that completes the exchange.
Okay.
And I've got some language from the Treasury office in DC that they don't tax that transaction because of the exchange.
So you said the money part is the hard part, right? So
yes,
the buy, like whoever's doing the reverse has to come with all the cash that they would net from the sale of.
We got to come up with the money, and I'm going to hold the new
amount.
Yeah, where's the money coming from? You're not coming up with my money, not my money.
Sure.
We got to come up with the money. Call grandma, somebody, right? So, you know, if and it's not unusual, hey, we're buying a new property, but I'm going to use an LLC. So we typically got to go to the local banks. You know, I've done them with Burke and Herbert and Eagle and MVB and First Virginia. So many of the local mid-tier banks, the smaller guys, they know what I'm doing. If you tell me we're going to Wells Fargo to do this, I do not fit in their little boxes to do this. They don't like me at all. What do you mean you're putting a temporary owner in there? What the hell are you talking about? So they don't like that. The little guys do, the smaller guys do. So, and there's different ways to structure these things. So I structure them on where's the money coming from and where are the properties? What states are we dealing with? And then I maneuver with the client and plan this out. But really the point of all of this, there is a way to grab control of the new property and get rid of the old one. So there's mechanisms to do that, right? So just give you guys a feel, we opened up 11 reverses last month. So this is a common thing for me. This is normal for me. Well, I'm a pretty big operation, so we do a lot of this, right? All these transactions, right?
What percentage would you say are reverse versus more straightforward?
About 5%. So we're running about 200 exchanges a month that we do.
Wow. And then is there a level of sophistication that is associated with the reverse or not?
No, it's just education. Just, how does this work? Coming up with the money, and is it worth adding that level of cost to this? And it's a pain in the ass. You're putting a temporary owner in place. You got to deal with those issues. So is it worth going through that? When I talk to clients, let's say there's somebody selling something, they have $100,000 tax bill if they cash out of the property they've owned for a long time. And they found the one they really want. Is it worth paying me $5,800 to step in, go through the hurdles to shelter, $100,000 tax bill? Easy decision, right?
Mm-hmm. Wow. And so, William, just I'm just trying to make sure I'm clear, because I had one agent call me and say they had a 1031 buyer for a listing that I had, but it was a listing that was in a residential neighborhood. It was for $2 million, but it wasn't a business. And so I'm trying to remember what happened. This was right before COVID hit. But I was confused. I wasn't really familiar with 1031s, not until I took your class for DCAR.
Oh, you did?
I did. It was great. But I was confused about how they could do that. Because it wasn't a business property. It was clearly someone's primary residence that they were trying to trade into.
Right.
You follow me?
Yeah, but the owner dictates its use. If a buyer buys it and turns it into a rental, they're in the rental business.
Okay.
They can buy any kind of property and make it a business property.
And the location doesn't matter. So I could have something here that I'm selling and I want to buy something in North Carolina.
Anywhere in the country.
Got it.
Or the territories except for Puerto Rico. So poor Puerto Rico's out.
Wow.
Yeah, they have a different tax system than we do, so they're out. But I've done exchanges out of Guam, which is fascinating, and then into the U.S. Virgin Islands. Man, there's a lot of money pouring into the USVI after the hurricanes.
A lot.
Right? People were buying things with blue tarps on the roof.
Yeah. But they have something weird going on down there too. I had someone who was there who wanted to buy a property at 1.2. But and I can't remember exactly, but she said something about a residency requirement now in the Virgin Islands. And
that could be.
Yeah, it was getting kind of weird because so many Americans were flooding down there to buy.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could very well be.
In that case, if they were to buy like a duplex in the Virgin Islands, would that still qualify? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just 2 rentals, right? Duplex is 2 rentals.
No, but move into one.
Oh, good. Okay, let's talk about that for that scenario. Yeah. Let's say I'm selling a $500,000 rental and the duplex is $1 million and I'm going to move into half, 500,000 of it. The exchange would be into 1/2 of the duplex. So I might have one deed, one, loan on the thing, but I'm buying the half of it as my investment. We call it a mixed use property because I have both a home there and my investment property. So you can have both in one property and you treat them separately. Just like you rent your basement out, that's your rental basement, right? It's the same thing. So you can trade into a partial property. I had a client sell a rental townhouse, sold her home, bought a brand new gorgeous home, but the back acreage was for her new winery. So the money from the rental townhouse went into the acreage for the new vines in the back acreage. Farmers do exchanges all the time. They have a home, right? The little house with the little fence around it. That's the home, and then they got the working farm, and they trade that land. That's very common, normal.
So creative.
So to complicate this a little bit further, right? So that duplex, I say it's both rentals, right? And do the 1031 exchange, but I move into it in 2 weeks, right? And it
Yeah.
becomes that home for me, but I'm planning to stay there forever and die in it, right?
So you took 1031 money from a $500,000 sale and bought a
Yeah.
duplex for $500,000,
Right,
and rented it for 2 weeks and then move into half.
right.
Yeah, pray you don't get audited, because then the government going to come in. You didn't hold that new investment. This was for investment property. This was not for
we
homes.
talked about the vacation home, right?
Right.
And what's the requirement to sit in it?
Minimum
Until
2 weeks of personal use.
No. So we had talked about the vacation home. Someone sold all of their rental properties to buy the vacation home, right? Their last home, right? That they're going to live in.
Another
They rented
investment
out-
property in a vacation
I'm
town.
sorry, yeah, their investment property in a vacation town,
And
but
it's
with
gorgeous.
the intent of at some point moving into it, right?
Right.
At what point does that become okay, right? Because the same situation I think applies to this example where I want to move into that investment property in the Virgin Islands, or half of it at least, right? But how long do I have to wait until I could actually go into it to clear the concern?
So the safe answer is 2 years.
Okay.
And minimum rent for 2 weeks per year for 2 years in a row, and keep personal use down to 2 weeks. Now, I've had plenty of clients move in after a year, right? Because we've seen
Okay.
signals from Treasury, they're really looking for a year, but they gave us a safe answer of 2. So if you move in sooner, you're less safe.
So sort of like a regular rental, right? Like if I was to
Yeah.
buy a property in my own name, I have to live in it until at least a year before it can turn into a rental, right?
That's a lender issue, if I'm not
Lender
mistaken.
issue, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lender issue. Right? That's not a 1031 issue.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank
Lender
you.
issue. I know I covered a lot here in just a few minutes, right? But I'm around to do exchange. You got my phone number up there. You got my email up there. I'm happy to answer questions. There's a bunch of us here. This is all we do all day long. I have a tax attorney. It's part of staff with me. You know, I'm a past president of our association. I'm pretty plugged in. I got resources all over the place for answers on questions on these things, which is cool. Hey, one little nugget, just in case you wanted to know a little nugget in the business. There's been a bill introduced by Mike Lee. I think he's Utah. I better look at my Senator Lee, to remove the 45-day identification step. So that bill got dropped in the Senate. Now he's a Republican, so it's not going anywhere at the moment.
He's definitely Utah.
Yeah, so we're watching that very closely, because that would be a change to 1031 if they remove the 45-day, which is the pain in the ass part of an exchange, is doing that ID step. Now I don't know where it's going, so who knows where it's going. Not much is happening on the Hill.
Sorry, I'm full of questions today.
Sure.
So what about ownership? So if I have my rentals in an LLC, does the 1031 have to be into the same LLC, or could it be into something else?
How many members in the LLC?
One.
So you can buy with the LLC again. It's your own little business. You can buy in your own name, or you can buy in a different single member LLC, because this is all taxes and your social security number.
So two.
that's, pardon?
What about two? I just wanted to,
Sure. Well, that's a partnership by definition. So if that LLC has two people in it, even if it's husband and wife, that's a partnership by definition. That has its own tax return. It needs to do the exchange, because this is about taxes. Same taxpayer it sells, got to be the same taxpayer that replaces their investment. Got to be consistent, because it's all on the same tax return.
But the same two people have to buy it.
In the LLC, if a partnership sells, the partnership is the owner. It can do the exchange. Then the partnership gives K1s to the members. So the partnership is the tax owner, right? It has to continue its business somewhere else.
So if someone wanted to exit, they would have to pay the gains,
So
or pay
paint
to
that
get out.
scenario for me, that exit. So
Sure. So like, let's say two people own an investment property, and one guy's like, I don't want to sell it, but if I do, I'm going to roll it into something else. And other guy's like, nah, so they have a partnership, two of them on the LLC. They roll it over, and now there's only one member in the LLC. And they buy the same guy buys similar property. But
There's
I don't know
issues
how
there. That's issues because you're changing players, right? If an LLC sells, it's got to replace its investment. I say a multi-member LLC, a partnership sells, it's got to replace its investment. You can't just
with
have
the
one
same
person.
members. Can you
Well,
sign
it could
off?
be
I guess
different
that's an
members, but
LLC
you got to
structure.
keep the partnership in place.
Gotcha. The
Right.
structure of it. So
Right.
replacing. Gotcha.
Partnership
Okay.
means two people.
Or LLC, you have to nominate a new member or just
Bring in somebody to keep the thing
got
alive.
it.
But you can't exchange out of a partnership, which where the issue really is. And that's what I run into. It's somebody, three of us got together, we bought a property with an LLC, it's time to sell. Well, I want to exchange and the other guys don't. Well, I own an interest in a company. I don't own the real estate. So we go through these exercises called drop and swap and drop. We're rejiggering the ownership down to tenants in common, hold for a while, and then we trade our individual tenant in common interests for something else, because then we own real estate. Those have to be planned out well in advance. Those are not something you do at the last minute. You got to, because the language of 1031 says you can exchange property that was held. So you got to get an ownership of real estate, hold it for a while, and then trade it. Okay, for something else. Take some planning. That takes a little. That comes with some risk doing that, because you're rejiggering the ownership to get out of paying taxes. The government knows you're doing that. That's a whole class into itself. How do you get out of partnerships and trade? That's a class into itself.
Hey, Bill, I'm glad you touched on that. I'm in a 3-member partnership LLC that in the 5-year horizon, we were going to look to 1031. My other managing partner and I, we have one non-managing member who's kind of more or less like a limited partner for all intents and purposes. And we were going to try to basically 1031 and buy him out and purchase the next property with the LLC as well. But it sounds like that might be a nightmare.
Well, how are you going to buy him out? Where's the money coming from to buy him out?
From the proceeds.
Yeah, so that's where the dilemma is. The LLC sells, takes money and buys him out. You're taking money to buy out a member. It's not going to buy real estate. So if I could give you cheap advice before you tip your hand that the property is for sale, and this is the planning part, buy him out and give him an interest in the real estate. Distribute him out of the LLC. So down at the courthouse, there's 2 names, his name and you and your partner in the LLC. You keep the partnership alive and then sell it. The LLC sells its 2/3 interest. He sells his 1/3, pays his taxes. The LLC moves forward.
And Brian, you can just refinance him. We have a partner on a big multifamily, and same thing. He wanted to get cashed out, so we just refinanced them out of it. So you don't have to
came up with
sell
the
it.
money, right?
Yeah.
Came
So
up
if there's
with the
equity
money.
in your property, just refinance out of it. That we don't have to come up with any money.
Got it. So refinance in advance of doing a potential 1031.
Yeah, I wouldn't even tell them you're doing a 1031 because you'd be like, these guys are gonna leave me behind and they're gonna make bigger profits without me. Just be like, listen, we're not making a lot of money here. It's not really worth it. It's hard. Let's just, I'm gonna refinance out of this property. I'm gonna keep it for a really long time, or whatever you want to say to him. But if you make it sound as if you're gonna do a 1031, and it's just the psychology of the investor. But we just refinanced someone out, and just all we did was just minimize the equity in the property.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that's great advice. Glad I asked because it wasn't even on my radar until we had Bill on here. So thank you.
Yeah, Brian, you don't want to pay him out. But the only bad part is that you lose the equity, but at least you get rid of your partner and you keep more money for yourself.
Yeah, it's already a very complicated split of equity, cash flow, and yeah. So not looking to make it any more complicated.
Where is that property, Brian?
That's down in Jacksonville, Florida. So we picked it up off a wholesaler in September of last year, and yeah, pretty much did my first kind of, if you will, investor deal. We structured it as a partnership, as I mentioned, and then myself and my business partner, who's in the Air Force out in Colorado, we're kind of the general partners, if you will, and then we have the highest equity split of it, and then our non-managing member takes, he's got a portion of the equity, less than 20%, so that he didn't have to be on any of we got debt on it as well. So learned a lot during this deal. Like, you can't have 20% or greater equity. Otherwise, his name has to be personally guaranteed on the mortgage that we got in the name of the LLC. So a lot of learning and loopholes were involved, but yeah, he's happy with it. We structured the deal in such a way where he's actually taking home 40% of the cash flow, but only has 19% of the equity. And then Matthew and I have 30% of the cash flow each, which equals 100 with the 40. And then I have something around like 50% of the equity because I do most of the work. And then Matthew has like 30. So yeah, it all worked out on paper. So everyone signed.
I always wonder, is it good to, when do you bring another person in? I think that could be a whole seminar. Carlos always like, if the fish is big enough,
Yeah.
you reel it in,
Yeah,
reel it in by yourself. That always
we were looking for something entirely different, and one of the wholesalers I knew down in Florida, because that's where I moved up here to the DMV from, he actually hit me up, and it was a deal where it was like, it was a quadruplex, and it was smaller than what we were looking to do. So we were like, we were basically just talking, and we weren't gonna buy it unless we brought in an investor. So I was like, okay, if we're gonna do an investor deal anyway for our first one, might as well start smaller. And we're able to basically get a guy I know who makes a lot of money doing software sales to front most of the down payment. So we got in for, little money. Like I said, I made out with the most amount of equity, but then again, every week I feel like I'm a property manager still anyway. So
yeah,
here nor there, but it's definitely a pain in the ass, but a lot of good things can come of it. We have a lot of equity. We bought it for $410 that's including the wholesaling fee. And right away, our appraisal was $604, like during due diligence. So, right off the bat, we had $190.
That's sweet.
That doesn't stink.
No, it's not bad. I think the appraisal is a little high. I think more like 500, but even then, you're talking about 20% of the value. So,
yeah, sounds pretty good.
Always good learning lessons.
Smells a lot better than Jad's last house.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely no septic or well. I don't do those.
No, but partners can be a nightmare, but you can grow your portfolio. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we made sure he's, non-managing member. It's like, because he was going to be in the LLC, we originally wanted to do an LPGP arrangement, and my real estate attorney was like, why do you want to spend $20,000 and get an SEC attorney involved and all this other stuff? Because you're basically creating a security if you do the LPGP. I was like, I really don't want to do that. So how do people do it? He was like, make a multi-member LLC, get your operating agreement together. I'll review that. And then once you close the deal, the bank has your operating agreement as it is with him as 19% equity. But if you were to, hold what's it called? Like a meeting of the members and redefine, equities and cash flows and everything else after the fact, then, bank can't really do anything about it. And you have, as long as you're operating in agreement with your operating agreement, then you're good to go. So I don't know if Bill, maybe you have some advice on that, or if that's good or bad.
That's out of my sandbox. I do 1031s.
Yeah, that's what my attorney told me. So, roll with it.
That's a good story. Well, thank you, Bill. I know you stuck in it, and appreciate you a lot. I'll be sending your information around so everybody has it, and look forward to continue the conversation. Hopefully they get rid of that 45 days.
We'll see. Nothing's happening on the Hill at the moment. They're busy.
Yeah, we won't. Yeah, they have other things to do.
We'll try to get some movers and shakers on the investment side over your way also.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Clearly a great resource that people need to know about.
Yes,
and local.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I'm just local.
Few people too.
Yep. And maybe I don't know if we have much time left for the market update. If people feel like
Carlos, tell us what happened. What's going on with the market?
Well, first of all, we'll do that. But if people feel like they need to sign off, eat a little dinner, do something different, you may not have allocated 5 hours to this.
No, what is more important than hearing what's going on with the market? How are we supposed to know what the listings, whether there's enough inventory on the market? This is the whole reason. I mean, William's presentation, and this is why I stuck around.
Great. Well, so, okay, here we go. So first of all, one of the things that I find just a little bit difficult about this report is that it feels so long ago that we closed out February. I say that because we're halfway into March, and maybe it's just me, I don't know, but it does feel like it's two things are very, very clear that were not super clear at the beginning of February anyhow. Okay, this is looking at February. So imagine February 1st, which is a day away from March 31st. So basically imagine January 31st. So just imagine January's just ended. Okay, and that's a very different moment from where we are right now, where it feels like Omicron is not a factor that's really impacting us locally in a tremendous way. Individuals, I'm sure, are suffering, but in terms of society as a whole. And then, you know, this war is like, it just feels like rams locking horns to the death potentially. It's going to be, you know, pretty. It has been already. Thousands of people have died already, and they're talking about it like it's a kind of warfare that hasn't occurred for quite some time in terms of the number of deaths in such a short period of time. So it's really, really serious. And then here we are, you know, March 15th. I don't know, Nick, does March 15th feel like what February felt like? I'm pretty clear.
Is that yours? Where?
Someone has to put their mute. But
no way. I think March. Yeah, ever since the Olympics, I think that was like the turning point. You know, just relaxing and but now it's picked up significantly. Rates. There's a lot of macro events that are happening.
Yeah, and then another variable is that, you know, once you reach the middle of March, you can just about, and today was a great day, taste spring. And you know, one thing I'll say about seasonality in real estate is, whereas the fall market, well, let's start with the summer market. The summer market, we really slow down and transition into summer come July, because with the July 4th holiday, we are in the summer for sure. And whereas, is it Labor Day at the end of the summer? I always get Memorial and Labor confused. That really, after we come back from Labor Day, now we're into the fall market. The thing about the spring market is, like, when does it start? It's very weather dependent. So I feel like right now we may be in a different place than we were in February. But what we are seeing is that the demand index is still a little bit down relative to certainly the first half of 2021. You know, it's got these ratings, it's got these numbers, and then these words that they use to describe it. And the demand is not, you know, it's been high and very high. So it's not on like red alert high. It's just a little bit slow, but it's up from the prior month. So January was at 69 and February was at 85. And I don't think they mean slow for February. I think they just mean slow in absolute terms. So it's probably not a remarkable February in terms of demand. But it is you know, 23% up from January, and it's a little bit down from where it was at 111 this time last year. So February of 2021, the demand index was reading at 111. And anyone who, you know, was alive and kicking, doing real estate related stuff the first half of last year knows that was an amazingly intense first half of the year. There are many people in many neighborhoods who achieved a high sale, in record-breaking sale in their neighborhood last, say, May. It could have even been February or March. Those records were basically not broken in the fall. They were, for the most part, the outlier, like just bananas sales, were happening in the first half of last year, which was really a torrid year. So, you know, it makes sense that last February, the demand index was materially higher at 111 than it was this February at 85. And there you go. 23% up from January, but 23% down from a year ago, is the demand side of the equation. So this demand index, for those of you who are not used to looking at it, is a relatively new tool of the MLS. You know, we're very well trained around here to focus on supply. The rest of the country has been awakening to that during the pandemic, but we've been in a low inventory market for a decade. Okay, I mean, that's just the way it is around here. It's a little extreme right now, but we're used to talking about supply. What we're getting better at talking about locally, and it's with data, there's some inputs that go into this index that are measurable. Like one of them is like literally showings. So because Bright MLS now has got all of us realtors scheduling through a specific tool called Showing Time, that Showing Time is now a database that helps them to measure the pulse of the market. I'm grateful for that, actually. I don't love, say, monopolies, but if you can consolidate and aggregate data more accurately, because virtually every appointment is scheduled through Showing Time, then it's very helpful to have that information. And I think that's one of the inputs on the demand index. We're getting this weekly report that Nick just flashed up that shows you literally number of showings.
Yeah, the one thing that stuck out was the number of closings, and closings has a lagging indicator, meaning that, it takes 1 month, maybe 2 months for something to close. So that's a lagging indicator that it was a really, really hot winter, and hotter than most winters. So we're coming off a really hot and heavy. We felt some slowdown, but I think it's still continuing.
Okay.
Again,
if I can just comment also really quickly, notice that this is for a week. So before we were looking at the month of February, now we're looking at a week in March, like last week, basically, or so.
Exactly. Yeah, and I like to kind of take this as a pulse, like how are we ranking up against last year and then 2020? As you know, 2020 was like, one of the biggest years. Well, I guess not until after the pandemic hit, but that was a crazy year. One of the first rolling years.
But I feel like there's so many buyers right now, like where I'm a Samson agent, and like there's so many agents that aren't even like really looking right now. They're just like, listen, like this one lady, she posted how she has 9 different buyers, and then she put a list of all of what those buyers are looking for. Like, okay, if you have a townhouse in Reston, my buyer's willing to pay up to $625 for it. If you have a house in Ashburn, my buyer's willing to pay this for it. If you have this, if you have that, like I feel like there's like, when they have the unemployment rate and like, oh, unemployment's 7%, but that doesn't even count the people that are not even in the game because they've given up like on looking,
Yeah,
that's what like right now the real estate.
That's huge.
I mean,
that's huge what you just
said. Because like on like like a townhouse that my buddy won the other day in Lorton, it came on at 615. I believe it went for 760. There's houses that are, I mean, it's a townhouse in Lorton. I mean, there's houses that, I mean, it's crazy. There's one house, where was it? Started off at 800, went to 960. Houses in Herndon, Reston, Oakton, those houses are all trading now for 1.1 million, even though the comps just last year were 850, 875. So my point is that it's just that, remember, every year 5 million people are turning 30. Those people are all living in apartments. They're having babies. They don't want to be stuck in a confined space, and they have money. Both people are working. You have at least each person making $100,000, and they don't, they've been told to put their money into a house.
One little piece of info in this slide that I don't know why. I'm trying to figure out what to relate to because there's so much info here. I'm a bit overwhelmed at the moment, but the 7 days thing. Because, median days on market it's a very relatable like thing to think about. Because you're like, how long can I expect this thing to sit around before I need to act is what buyers are thinking. How quickly are things really going? I just had 2 people ask me that today. It's interesting that it's about this particular week, it was about the same median as it was, I guess, this week in 2021. But both of those were very different from 2020, chopped in half. So maybe that means that this spring is going to be as intense. Well, there are some indicators that it's pretty close to as intense as last spring, I guess.
The only thing is, I think there's going to be a lot more inventory this year. I mean, if you go on the Maryland, just go on the MLS, type in Anne Arundel and take a look at the coming soon. There are more coming soons now than ever before. So there's a lot. I mean, I don't know about anywhere else, but in Anne Arundel at least. I mean, even another investor friend of mine, he's the main broker for Samson out of Bowie. and he was like, Jad, you better hurry up and get your flips on the market. We haven't seen this much inventory come on the last 2 years.
Mhm.
Do you think that's because of the rule change that people have to put in the coming soon status to advertise, which they may or may not be following?
No, I just think that everyone's vaccinated, and COVID is not going to be the end of the world. And really, like, who wants to live here? Like, if you're not working here, don't you want to sell and go to Tampa or Clearwater or South Beach or
Yes.
Cocoa Beach? You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you go on CNBC, Carlos and Nicholas, type in Florida people moving CNBC. There's a report that just came out last week. There was a 45-minute report about the mass exodus of people going to Texas and Florida.
Texas, Florida, and it's one other state. I watched it. It was on all night. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I would move there if I could make something similar to what I make here. I mean,
yeah,
DC is overrated.
In Texas.
Jad, I hear what you're saying on the exodus to Texas, Florida and stuff, but I've got a friend who's a really big player in multifamily space in New York City. And you heard about the giant exodus from LA and New York City during the pandemic, but now New York City's at all-time highs for multifamily. They've beaten every record. So I don't necessarily know that people are flocking, out of DC or New York City or those places.
Go on YouTube and type in why people are leaving New York. New York City, you have to pay a 14%. I forgot what it was. It's either a 14%. No, I don't want to exaggerate. I think it's like an 8% city tax on top of your state income tax, on top of your federal income tax. If you watch the CNBC report, Brian, they said that people used to think that if you moved to Florida from New York, that, you're like a weakling or you can't handle it. Now they think you're a sucker if you stay in New York. It's right, Sandy? You heard that, right? In the CNBC report?
I did, but I got to tell you, Jad, I thought some of it was very slanted because it seemed to focus on the uber wealthy who were leaving for taxes because there's no income tax in Texas, but it's horrible property taxes, no income tax in Florida, but they get you in other ways. And so there's this notion that people are leaving New York City and California, especially California because of the cost of living generally, but everybody else for the state taxes, and they're going to these low tax states.
No, forget about state tax. Carlos and everyone else on here, when you get off, you're going on YouTube to why am I leaving New York City? Not that it has anything to do with this because we're in DC, but there's there's an 8% city tax. Yeah. So if you and I are making $10,000 every month, you get a state tax, a federal tax, and then a city tax of that on top of it.
It's a beast.
We don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, there's a beast, but what that report noted was that the ultra wealthy don't really care about the tax aspects of it. So if they're moving someplace, because of other motivations, not necessarily because of the cost, because they can afford it. It's the people who can't afford it who are leaving in droves. And remember, this was the end of the report, which was the cautionary tale, is that you've got this mass exodus, or what is perceived as a mass exodus out of Texas and New York and a little bit of the DMV area, but into Texas and Florida and I think a little bit of Arizona and Nevada. And they're saying these places now are becoming overpopulated, and the residents who live there are now seeing these incredible increases in prices. And so they're fearful that they're now going to be priced out because of this reverse migration back to the South and these other low income tax states.
Well, I mean, other part of it, Jad, is what you said about the demographic part. People can leave, and that doesn't necessarily deplete the places they leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, the property taxes here are crazy too. I mean, we're just talking about more inventory. I'm just saying, like, if you have the choice to leave, like, I have a house in Oakton, right? My mortgage is only $2,900, but my property taxes per month is $1,400.
Oh.
I mean, it's crazy. Like, when I agreed to move here, I thought my mortgage was gonna be like $3,000. I didn't know it was gonna be close to $4,700 a month because Oakton, Virginia has $1,400 a month in property, and it's going up.
Jad, it comes with it comes with the margins you get on the price points you get. You just got to pay your taxes, man.
So Carlos, you think the inventory is going to go up, right, this spring?
Actually, I do. I do.
I actually think it's going to go up less than we expect, because everybody's offloading now. I think a lot more people are offloading now, so we'll see a not disappointing, but don't wait
last
up
year,
for the spring.
You know what, last
The
year,
spring is what I've
Carlos
been
and
telling
Nicholas, I just want to give you guys a heads up. Last year, right after July 4th, the market died. Like,
Oh,
you don't have to tell me that.
it was crickets.
Now, where'd everybody go? Yes, it's true.
So just like if you guys want to get your listings on, or if you guys have something, or maybe if you have a buyer that wants to wait, I mean, July 4th till like maybe after school. Oh my God. I had a listing that went on in Riverdale. It just like the market plummeted like crazy. It was crickets.
No, it was a remark, and you know what? Actually, it was earlier than that in my business. In other words, the end of the spring market came early, and it was very abrupt. It was very strange to me. Yeah. Well, listen, we're going to try to weave into these upcoming webinars also some conversation around my favorite buy and hold category, which is the young professional group house rental, which is a real thing in downtown DC, and I think it's a great wealth building strategy, much more so than cash flow. Cash flow can be decent, and then if you can hold it a while, it could become great. But it's really the wealth building aspect of it. These assets are expensive and become much more expensive relatively quickly. So look for that. And we're also going to cover Section 8. Are we going to get to have Dr. Joe or any of his trainees, any of his students come and talk to us? Is this
April? It's Dr. Joe.
Oh, it is. Oh, wow. I didn't realize you had secured it. That's great, Nick. So
yeah, maybe we'll have one under contract with him, and he'll tell us about it.
But Carlos, can we do the group house? That sounds awesome. I've heard Dr. Joe's presentation a million times. Just fix up a house and put a Section 8 renter. But doing the group house, that sounds sexy. Carlos, can we do like a FaceTime of it? Show us what the house looks like and all that stuff.
Sure.
How you manage it, because it seems like a pain in the ass to manage that many adults.
It's not.
And all that stuff.
It's not. Yeah. No, a lot of it is easier than you think. Plus, Chad, it could get you into a trophy thing downtown. You know, have a turn of the century $1 million to $2 million property, 2 or 5 in your portfolio.
I'm excited, Carlos. So when are you gonna do the presentation?
Well, I don't know.
Hey, Carlos, can we put this off until I close on my group house property so that we can not get outbid by Jad here?
Okay.
And trust me, the last thing, yeah, no, thank you. But if Carlos can show us how to do it, man, I'd love to do it.
We have some good people. Too bad David Van Leeuwen's not on.
It'll fit well with the May session. I wouldn't want to take any of Dr. Joe's space up. All right, Jad. So the May one, is that all right with you?
You promise? Yeah. And can you just let me know when you're gonna go crack the whip on your group house tenants, so I can go there with you and see how you do it. Pick up your shit. You know. This house did not be that messy.
I have a story to tell along those lines. I once confiscated a foosball table.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that story. It was sort of funny. But that's it for now, you guys. I actually have to jet. And I just want to make sure, though, that if you guys don't mind spreading the word and inviting a friend or two, when you get our next reminder, if you could just forward it to a person or two, I'd be grateful.
Yeah, I will. I think that if Nicholas, if you can just send us the link maybe, and then we can get it on, because I have a lot of mentees.
Yeah.
That will call me for advice. I just gotta send them the link for Meetup, and then they gotta log in, and then we gotta do this thing at the link. But definitely, I think let's try a week out to try to get it. Next set a goal of trying to get 50 people next month.
Let's do it. It'll be April. That'll be a very good time of year.
Yeah, and reply with some thoughts on topics, because I think those are game changers too.
Hey guys, I was just going to ask real quickly, Carlos, you met my friends Danny and Meg a week or two ago, and just a whole bunch of other people I know that are super interested in in-person events, but I swear I put the word out about this and I'm like, you guys don't understand, you're missing gold. There's this crazy guy, Jad, he comes on and says a million things, you got to hear it. And, just spreading the word about it, but everyone's just seems to be more interested in in-person events, at least the people I'm connected with. So I'm just curious if you guys have thoughts
With
on
$5 gallon gas, they want to do in person.
Hey man, I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. So I'm just curious if you guys have any thoughts on when potential in-person events would happen.
Maybe
We've
we can
talked
make,
about it.
yeah, maybe we can make the May meeting in person. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so nice out, and
Yeah.
doing a dual session would be nice.
Yep.
Seeing you in person would be great, Chad.
Yep.
And Brian.
Brian and Sandy, meet you finally. Bill, if you ever want to come on into the city and hang out with some city slickers.
I'm gonna hang out with you guys. I'm ready to go.
All right.
Let's do this. Let's do
Cool.
it.
I love the enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
guys, get some deals, and we'll see you in a month, if not sooner.
All right.
All right.
Thank you,
All
Bill.
right.
This was really great, guys, as usual.
Good.
I
Good
wasn't
to have
cooking
you
dinner
on, Sandy.
tonight.
Good, good energy.
Much better.
Absolutely. You guys have a great night. Bye.
Thanks, guys.